Jack knew she thought she was being clever. What she didn't realize was that I already knew everything, thanks to a co-worker of hers who found the situation appalling and decided to inform me. I kept my cool, planning my next steps. Luckily, I had time to process my emotions and prepare for what was coming. Tonight was the night. Kayla, tonight's the night, I told my friend Mary. Really? You're finally going through with it? She asked eagerly. Yes, I said firmly. After dinner, I'll get him a beer, and then I'll tell you everything that happens. Mary gave me a reassuring smile. Just remember to stay strong. He won't like it, but you have to hold your ground. I will, I promised. We talked about this, and he doesn't have a choice. If he truly loves me, he'll let me do this for my happiness. Mary nodded approvingly. Exactly. He might yell and argue, but eventually he'll come around and accept this new reality. Just stay calm but assertive. Let him vent, and he'll realize you're in charge. You're right, I agreed. Besides, as far as he knows, it's only temporary. Once he adjusts, he might even start liking it. Then it'll just become the norm. Are you sure about this, though? Mary asked, her voice tinged with concern. Jack can be very stubborn. Look, Mary, I said confidently, Jack loves me more than anything. He'll be upset at first, but once he calms down, he'll realize he loves me enough to do whatever it takes to make me happy. Even this. Mary smiled knowingly. Trust me, I've been through this. It took 2 failed marriages, but I perfected the method with my 3rd husband. You've met him. He's completely under my control now. Mary paused, choosing her words carefully. Let's just say he knows his place and fulfills his role perfectly. Jack will come around too, and then you'll have both the security of your marriage and the freedom you need. With that, I felt a renewed sense of determination. That evening, I prepared Jack's favorite dinner. When he came home, he greeted me as usual, with a kiss on the cheek and the words, "I love you." His affection made my nerves spike, but I reminded myself of the bigger picture. This change was for the best, for both of us. Dinner went smoothly. We talked about our day and shared light-hearted conversation. Afterward, I insisted he grab a beer and relax while I cleaned up. He hesitated, offering to help, but I assured him I had it under control. As I finished tidying up, I poured myself a glass of wine and took a deep breath. It was time. I walked into the living room, where Jack was sitting, and began. "Jack, honey, we need to talk," I said cautiously. He looked up, curious but calm. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I know this might be hard for you to accept, but it's something I really need to do. Please understand that this is only temporary." Jack's brow furrowed slightly, but he nodded. "Okay, if it's important to you, I'll listen. What do you need?" Encouraged by his response, I continued. "We've talked about starting a family, and I'm almost ready for that. But before we do, there are some things I feel I need to take care of, just for a couple of months." Jack smiled faintly. "That sounds reasonable. What kind of things?" I took another deep breath. "I need to sow the last of my wild oats," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It will only be temporary, and then I'll be ready to fully commit to our future. I'll be the best wife and mother you could ever imagine." His expression shifted slightly, but he remained composed. "Okay, and what exactly does that mean?" "It means I'll be seeing other men for a little while," I explained. "We'll still have our relationship, but I'll also have casual relationships with others. This will allow me to get everything out of my system before settling down completely." Jack's voice remained calm, though his words carried weight. "Kayla, you're not asking for my permission. You've already made up your mind. I want to be clear. I don't agree with this. I'm not giving my consent, but I also won't stop you. You're an adult, and this is your decision." I was surprised by his restraint, but his tone left no room for argument. "Thank you for understanding," I said softly. Jack nodded. "Just one thing. While this is going on, we won't be intimate. It's for my own health, given the risks involved. After you're done, we'll need to wait until you've been tested and cleared. Then we can move forward. Though disappointed, I accepted his condition. I understand, I said. Jack's tone lightened slightly. So, when do you plan to start this new chapter? Tomorrow night, I admitted. Mary and I are going to a club. We'll see how it goes. Jack simply nodded again. Okay, Kayla. Don't worry about me. I'll take care of moving out by the time you get home tomorrow night, Jack said calmly before turning back to his newspaper. I couldn't believe how mature he was about the entire situation. My heart soared. Sure, he had weakly complained and outright refused to be intimate with me, but overall, he was completely accepting of everything. He didn't even show the slightest anger. Mary was definitely right. Within 2 months, Jack would be under my thumb completely. Besides, this temporary lack of intimacy didn't worry me. I figured, after a week or two, he'd come crawling back to my bed. Then, I'd simply use my charm to ensure he fully embraced his role as my submissive little hubby. Hi, Mary, it's Kayla, I said over the phone. Hey, girl. So, how'd it go last night? Mary's voice was eager. Oh my God, Mary. You wouldn't believe it. I laughed. Jack was unbelievably calm about everything. I expected him to blow up, maybe even yell, but he didn't even raise his voice. He was so composed and accepting. That's fantastic, Mary exclaimed. Didn't I tell you he'd go along with it? You've got him wrapped around your finger already. Do you think he'll watch tonight? I shook my head, smirking. Doubt it. He told me he refuses to be intimate with me while I'm with someone else. But I know that won't last long. Give it a week or two, and he'll be begging to touch me again. Mary chuckled. Classic. So, what's he doing now? Well, I began grinning. Since he's refusing to touch me, I told him to move into the spare room. He's packing his things as we speak and promised to move out of the master bedroom before I get home tonight. Master bedroom? Mary snickered. Don't you mean owner's bedroom? You're the one in charge, after all. I burst out laughing. You're right. I should start calling it that from now on. Absolutely, Mary agreed. Anyway, I'd better let you go. See you at the club later. Definitely, I replied. Bye. When I got home, Jack had made decent progress moving his belongings out of my room. Boxes were stacked neatly in the hallway, and he was finishing up the last of his packing. Why not just carry your things down the hall? I asked, curious. Jack glanced up and shrugged. This way is easier. I can sort through everything, and anything I don't need can go straight into boxes to get rid of later. It sounded reasonable enough, so I didn't press further. Besides, I was too busy getting ready for the night. As I slipped into my red cocktail dress, the one Jack had gifted me for our 5th anniversary, I couldn't help but feel a bit smug. I looked stunning, and I knew it. I'll be out late, I informed Jack, grabbing my clutch. Probably back around 1 a.m., but don't wait up. And don't be surprised if I'm not alone. Jack nodded, sealing the last box. Don't worry. I'll be completely moved out by then. There was a faint uneasiness in his tone that I brushed off as nothing. Mary, Larry, and Josh were already waiting when I arrived. Drinks were flowing, and the atmosphere buzzed with energy. So, Mary said, leaning in conspiratorially, did Jack finish moving out of your room? Yep, I replied with a grin. He promised everything would be out by the time I got home. The group erupted into laughter. Too bad he's not sleeping next to you anymore, Larry joked. It'd be fun giving that little cuckold a show. Patience, I teased. Give it time. We spent the night dancing, drinking, and laughing. I could feel Josh and Larry pressing against me during the slow songs, their hands lingering a little longer than necessary. It was exhilarating. The house was quiet when I returned. Jack's truck was gone, but I didn't think much of it. Instead, I focused on making coffee and enjoying the stillness. Later, Mary called. Hey, sexy. How was last night? She asked. Josh was incredible, I gushed. Just as amazing as I thought he'd be. And Jack? What was his reaction this morning? I don't know, I admitted, frowning. He didn't even make coffee. He's probably still asleep. Well, wake him up, Mary urged, laughing. Marching down the hall to the spare room, I pounded on the door. Jack, I called. No answer. Annoyed, I swung the door open, only to find the room completely empty. What's wrong? Mary's voice sounded alarmed. He's gone, I whispered, panic creeping into my voice. His clothes, his truck, his tools. Everything's gone. Finally, I understood what Jack had meant. He hadn't been moving into the spare room. He had been moving out. I thought Jack meant he'd move out of the bedroom, but it became painfully clear he'd meant the entire house. I paced the room, my mind racing. Should I call him? Find out where he's gone? No. That would only show weakness. I needed to stay strong. Let him contact me. Mary's voice echoed in my head. He's just having a little tantrum. In a couple of days, he'll come crawling back. This is actually a blessing. Now, you have a reason to punish him. Make him beg for your forgiveness and do something to earn his way back. Her words replayed like a mantra. Besides, she'd added with a sly grin, imagine if you let Josh or Larry knock you up and made Jack raise the baby. It would seal his devotion forever. Are you sure about this? I had asked her. Absolutely, Mary replied without hesitation. Look at my husband. He practically worships me now. Trust me, you'll have Jack eating out of your hand. I couldn't deny that Mary had been right so far. Her advice had worked like magic. Okay, I relented. You've convinced me. Oh, and by the way, Mary continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, Larry wants to meet you in the supply closet at work on Monday. Just an hour. I hesitated. Can we really get away with that? Of course, she laughed. Half the girls here are doing it. Just put it on your calendar as an external meeting. No one will question it. The boss never goes near the supply room, and everyone knows to ask me before grabbing anything from there. She was so confident, and I found myself nodding. We chatted a while longer before hanging up, but a small part of me felt uneasy. Despite my actions, I genuinely loved Jack. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. But Mary made her lifestyle sound so appealing, so liberating. I figured, eventually, I'd stop seeing other men, and Jack would remain my loyal, obedient husband. Perhaps I'd even negotiate a deal where he'd let me tie him down if I gave up my flings. Not now, of course, only when I was ready. He didn't need to know that part yet. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, made a simple dinner, and tried to relax. By Friday morning, I still hadn't heard from Jack. Mary assured me this was to be expected. The longer he's away, she said, the more conditions you can set for his return. Work that week had been a whirlwind of excitement. My meetings with Larry, Josh, and a few other guys had become a daily ritual in the supply room. I even had a double session planned with Larry and Josh for that afternoon. But Friday morning brought an unexpected interruption. Mary, Larry, Josh, and I were gathered around the coffee machine, chatting during our break, when a young woman in a professional outfit approached us. Kayla Adams, Mary Morgan, Josh Johnson, and Larry Jones, she asked sweetly, her southern drawl thick but pleasant. We nodded, and she handed each of us an envelope, snapping a quick picture with a small digital camera. You've been served, she announced cheerfully before heading straight into the boss's office. What's this about? I demanded, flipping the envelope over. The woman didn't even glance back. Honey, I get paid to deliver, not explain, she called over her shoulder. A moment later, she emerged from the boss's office, still smiling. Have a nice day, y'all, she said brightly as she left the building. We tore open the envelopes simultaneously. My heart sank. It was a petition for divorce. Jack's name boldly printed at the top. Spousal cheating, it read under the reasons cited. My hands trembled as I scanned the pages. Before I could process it, Josh and Larry's phones rang simultaneously. Their expressions shifted from confusion to horror as they answered. It was their wives. The summaries were brutal. Detailed evidence of their infidelity, threats to throw their belongings out, and promises of impending divorce papers. Then, as if the day couldn't get worse, the boss's furious roar shook the office. Adams, Morgan, Johnson, Jones, get in here now. We shuffled into his office like guilty schoolchildren. You idiots want to tell me what the hell this is, he bellowed, waving a thick envelope. None of us spoke. He didn't wait for an answer. Let me break it down for you. The company is being sued for failing to enforce its moral conduct policy. And guess who's to blame? You four. Adultery, misconduct on company property, turning the storage room into your personal brothel. We stayed silent, unable to meet his gaze. I can't even fire you, he growled, because of a court order. But mark my words, this isn't over. Now get out of my sight while I figure out what to do with you. Heads bowed, we left his office. My life felt like it was crumbling around me, and I had no one to blame but myself. 2 minutes after sending my email, my inbox exploded with hate mail from coworkers. That evening, I met the other three at a bar across the street after work. We settled into a small corner table, trying to keep low profiles. Unfortunately, a few coworkers were also there for happy hour, and their glares were anything but welcoming. At least we have jobs for now, Mary said, trying to lighten the mood. That was generous of him, I said, referring to Jack. Why do you think he included that clause in the court order? Josh scoffed. Generous? Please. He didn't include that to spare your feelings. It's a calculated move to hurt you even more. How so? I asked, confused. Josh leaned forward, his voice dripping with bitterness. Alimony. Right now, you might not qualify because you're employed. But if you quit or get laid off after the divorce is final, there's no way a judge will award it to you. By keeping you employed until then, Jack's ensuring the odds are stacked against you in court. Larry chimed in. Exactly. If you resign now, the judge will see it as you intentionally sabotaging your income to seek support. You'll be painted as a gold digger. Your best bet is to keep your job, save every penny, and pray for the best. The realization hit me hard. My plan to quit was suddenly out of the question. Josh and Larry's situations were even worse. They had kids, which meant both child support and alimony were unavoidable. This is a nightmare, I murmured, feeling the walls closing in. I glanced at my phone, a desperate plan forming in my mind. I need to fix this. I need to talk to Jack. I dialed his number, but a robotic voice responded. The number you dialed does not accept calls from this number. My heart sank. Mary, give me your phone. Why? She asked warily. Because Jack blocked me, and I need to reach him. Mary hesitated but handed over her phone. I dialed again, only to hear the same cold response. The number you have dialed does not accept calls from this number. He blocked you too, I muttered, frustration bubbling over. What now? Larry asked. I'll figure it out, I snapped, my panic evident. But calling him from one of your phones would only make things worse. If he thinks I'm reaching out using one of my friends, he'll never listen. I sat there, grappling with my spiraling thoughts. My attempts to locate Jack over the weekend were futile. I drove to motels, checked parking lots, and even tried following his best friend, hoping he'd lead me to Jack. Nothing worked. Monday morning, I staked out his workplace, only to learn he'd taken 2 weeks off. Defeated, I returned to my job, knowing it was only a matter of time before I was fired. My only option left was email. I typed out a heartfelt message, pouring my soul into every word. Subject: I need to fix this. Jack, I have no excuses for my actions, and I won't waste your time trying to justify them. I made the worst mistake of my life, and I see that now. I was blind, foolish, and selfish. I let myself be manipulated, but the fault is mine alone. You are the best man I've ever known, and I've let you down in ways I can barely fathom. I love you, Jack, truly and completely. I'll do anything to prove that to you, to show you that I can be the wife you deserve. If you can find it in your heart to give me another chance, I promise to dedicate myself fully to you and our marriage. I'll abide by any conditions you set, no matter how hard they are, because I need you in my life. Forever yours, Kayla. Days passed with no response. My world continued to unravel, but I clung to the hope that Jack might give me a chance to make things right.